So the first time I ever hung out with my wife, we went over her apartment after we were, had dinner or whatever. We were just kicking it, and she was like, "Oh, it's 8 o'clock. You gotta go." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Oh, no. I got study and I got an exam in the morning. You gotta go." I thought she was joking. And she was like, she literally grabbed me by the arm and was like, "I'll see you later." A week later, she said, "You know what? We've been spending a lot of time together, and I honestly haven't even prayed about this relationship, so I'm gonna need a little space while I ask God if you're the right one for me."
Wow.
And I was offended and in love all at the same time.
And I don't think I've seen these two be this vulnerable about their personal lives. Entrepreneur David Shands and CJ Quinney. Stay tuned. We're going to dig in. Welcome to the Secret Formula of Femininity for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life. I'm Dr. Nicole Montero, your host on this weekly journey to unlocking your inner radiance, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself. Welcome back to the #1 podcast for femininity and healthy relationships, The Secret Formula of Femininity. I'm your host and guide on this journey to tapping into your feminine essence, Dr. Nicole. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. I noticed something very interesting. We spend so much time talking about what makes a woman attractive to a man, whether it's her looks, how she dresses, how she presents. Is she too successful? Does she make too much money? How can she bring him peace? And we all know that the internet has a whole list and a bunch of recommendations to go with that list. But I think we are overlooking a very important and much more interesting question. Not so much what makes someone attracted to someone or what sparks that chemistry, but more importantly, what makes someone look at another person and say, "That's the person that I want to build my life with. Hands down, I'm deciding she's the one." Attraction is one thing. It will get you interested. That's where we focus a lot. It's the date. It's what's attracting the other person. Chemistry gets you a little bit farther, but we've already talked about the limits of chemistry. But marriage, which is one of our core topics on the podcast, asks a very different question. And luckily, when I was at Podcast Summit last month, I got to sit down with two of my mentors, David Shands, the podcast king, and CJ Quinney, the branding king. And I wasn't asking them about business. I wanted to ask them something much more personal. What made them marry their wives? They both have been married and committed. They have families and kids, and it's a central part of what they talk about and what they share about their lives. And I wanted to know, beyond the Instagram pictures and all of the things that make them look so happy, I wanted to take it back to what made them say, "She's the one for me." And that's a much more powerful question. Because attraction is all around. What we feel is chemistry is all around. It's plentiful. But that commitment and that willingness, especially in this day and age, can feel very elusive. And I know a lot of people want to know what makes someone say, "I'm ready to commit." Now, each of their answers were short, but so rich and full of gems. And there were a few things that really stood out, and I want to see if you catch on to them. They were talking about boundaries, character, qualities beyond what you see on the surface, and what each man experienced in the woman that he ultimately chose to be his wife. So we're going to switch it up a little bit today. I'm going to play the interviews. You can hear their answers, and then we're going to unpack it together. As you're listening to their interviews, I want you to not just look at what they said they liked. I want you to listen for something a little bit deeper, because you know we like to listen deeper here. I want you to listen as they're talking and see if you can hear clues of who were these women, who did these women appear to be before these men even walked into their lives and asked them to partner with them. So before we get started, put in the chat, what is it that you think makes a man say, she's the one that I want to be my wife? And then we're going to compare notes.
Welcome to the Secret Formula of Femininity, the podcast for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life and want to thrive in their relationships. I am so happy to have my mentors here, people I look up to. You're entrepreneurs, but I want to dig into your relationships. You both talk about being married, and I see your content. You challenge people on that. So let's start with you, Dave. I'm here with David and CJ, if you don't know. But let's start with you, David. Why did you want to get married?
If I'm being honest, I didn't want to be single. I got married because I didn't want to be single, and I found someone who checked most of my boxes. Not all of them. She didn't check everybody. She checked 90%.
Close the doors. Close the doors.
The doors. But she was so great in every way. If I'm being 100% honest, I have a tendency to mess up a good thing. And I said, I don't want this to get away. The longer you with somebody, the more you start to convince yourself that, you are that guy. And, you'll find another one. I was like, she was so dope. I was like, I need to lock this in. I married her 6 months after I met her. And I said, I don't want to mess this up. So that's why I got married.
So you mentioned a checklist, or she checked all these boxes. When was that something that evolved over time, or you just one day woke up like, I made my millions, so here's my checklist?
No, I had no millions.
Okay.
I had no millions, but she was still there. What was one of the craziest things when I realized, this is my wife? I got her Instagram, went through her Instagram. For one, she had like 300 followers. I said, she's undiscovered. Two,
Undiscovered is crazy.
Oh, bruh. Atlanta's a vicious place, okay? Two, she had not one look back at it picture, not one booty short picture, not one revealing picture. I'm not saying anything wrong with it. Bro, I looked at it, I said, this is a wife.
And CJ, I want to hear from you because that's my contention.
My wife just fine as hell. I ain't gonna lie to her.
She just what?
She just fine as hell. I was teasing. She is gorgeous. That is the first thing that caught my attention. Much more. I don't have a check box like that. No. What was the question?
Okay, there is a lot in that short answer that David gave. And the first thing that jumped out to me wasn't the first thing that David said, but it was his self-awareness. He said he pushed back against his tendency to kind of wait, to mess up a good thing, to pick apart and find something wrong with a person, or even to have an ego that says, well, I can get somebody else. That there was something about his wife, his soon-to-be wife, that made him switch gears from what he used to do. Something about her captivated him so that he was no longer willing to engage in that same pattern of, well, let me wait and see. Let me pick this apart. Let me see what is wrong with this person. So there was something about the package that she presented. And obviously, when they met, she was doing her own thing. He said they met, and within 6 months, they were married. So it wasn't like she was in this whole phase of waiting for him and I need you to marry me. She was living her life. And so that's something we talk about a lot, right? Like the importance of being a woman who is grounded in herself, who is clear about who she is, or becoming clear about who she is, who is living her life. And so part of what I hear is that he had to chase a little bit. And the reason I think that is so important is because part of having boundaries is that you're just living your life. You're not desperate. You're giving off I am the prize vibes, but not for the reasons that you think. It's not some egotistical thing, but it's, hey, I am living my life. I'm growing. I am being myself. And it was that whole package that made David say, wait a minute, I got to do something different. I can't do this thing where I wait and I see I need to take action and I need to lock this down, as he said. And a lot of times when we talk about boundaries, what women hear is a set of rules, being rigid. It comes from a defensive place of, I'm not going to let someone take advantage of me. But the real healthy boundaries say, hey, this is who I am. I invite you to get to know me in a healthy way. I invite you to respect me. I invite you to honor me, and so forth. So it's not about a rigid set of rules that says stay out, but it's more about defining and being confident in who you are so that the other person is really intrigued, like, I want to get to know her and I want to do it on her terms. There is such a difference between having boundaries because you hope someone will choose you and having boundaries because you have already chosen yourself, and that's what attracts the other person. The other thing that he said that I love is he admired his wife's modesty and her low-key nature. That was something that was part of the whole package that she was presenting. Again, this wasn't a manufactured package. This was just who she was. But he liked the fact that she wasn't out there. She was undiscovered. And ladies, I can tell you, so many husbands that I talk to, they love the quality of the unique experience that they have with their wife. So that was something that David didn't say, but that's what I heard in that she was just living her life. There were no booty pictures, nothing that was trying to cause attention or get clickbait or whatever. And David made a really important point. He wasn't criticizing anybody else, any woman who decides to do that. He was just saying that that was one of the key things that made him look at his wife differently. It was that sense of her just being herself and not having to perform or try to put on this image. So when you think about those qualities that you're trying to cultivate in yourself, it is so important that they're not things that you're trying to perform to attract a man, but they're just things that are just who you are. And let's also break down this time frame, because sometimes people get that all mixed up. They have these timelines that are pretty rigid, but they also have this idea that they need to wait and see, or that it's okay for a man to string them along so that he can wait and see. David said, wait a minute, she made me switch up my whole pattern. In the past, I would have waited, but I decided that I did not want to waste time because she was that precious to me that I did not want to risk losing her. And when you're in that space of living your life, being yourself, being grounded and clear, and having those boundaries around who you are and what you value, then there's nothing to wait and see. In fact, you end up representing something that a man does not want to risk losing. So the time frame, it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out thing, because when a person knows, a person knows. And I hear that from both men and women. Now, of course, there is a such thing as rushing and going so quickly that you miss all of the red flags, you misread what you think might be green flags. But there's also a thing of drawing something out so long because you're not really sure in your gut, or that person knows in their gut that you aren't the one, or you know that they aren't the one, but perhaps you guys are using each other as placeholders. That's why you hear so many stories of people being in these long engagements and long relationships, and then they break up, and then one person ends up married within 3 months. It wasn't that they weren't ready to get married. They just didn't see you as the one that they wanted to marry. And it could be the other way around too. I hear women in these long engagements, they break up and they're back into another relationship. Sometimes they get married really quickly, but you tend to see this a lot with men, where they can be in long relationships, and then within 3, 6, 12 months of breaking up, they're married to the next person. Now, David's answer gave us one perspective, or a couple of core perspectives. I asked CJ the same question, and I heard something a little bit different. I want to see if you hear it too. Let's take a listen.
And that, okay, CJ, I want to hear from you, because that's my contention.
My wife just fine as hell. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, she just what?
She just fine as hell. I was teasing. She is gorgeous. That is the first thing that caught my attention. Much more. I don't have a check box like that. No. What was the question I was teasing?
Well, why did you want to get married?
Yeah. So I don't know that I wanted to get married. I think I met her and she made me want to get married. I didn't go in saying I want to get married. I had no intentions on getting married.
That's good.
I found the person, and the person made me want to get married. And so I had never, if I could be honest with you, so you gave your story of this is the only thing that, you know, and don't record. Y'all can record. All right, so look, this is what happened. I was pretty popular in college, so I dated a lot. Most of the women that I dated, they were like head over heels, one date, will you marry me type stuff. I used to be like, chill. Y'all might think I'm not. I'm just telling you what happened back then. So, Dave, it's the truth. Believe it or not. I'm still very attractive.
Jokes,
you know? Well, no, listen. So listen. I'm talking about they would be like, oh, I don't have to go to class today, or you want to just go to hang out, and they would just, you know, all kind of stuff. So the first time I ever hung out with my wife, we went over her apartment after we were, you know, had dinner or whatever. We were just kicking it, and she was like, oh, it's 8 o'clock, you gotta go. And I was like, what? And she was like, oh, no, I gotta study, and I got an exam in the morning, you gotta go. I thought she was joking. And she was like, she literally grabbed me by the arm and was like, I'll see you later. A week later, she said, you know what, we've been spending a lot of time together, and I honestly haven't even prayed about this relationship, so I'm gonna need a little space while I ask God if you're the right one for me.
Wow.
And I was offended and in love all at the same time.
So listening to you two, because I like women to hear from a man's perspective, especially marriage-minded, intentional women. But what I'm hearing from you is the woman you marry might not be the woman that you lusted after, or whatever. What piece of advice would you give to a woman?
I did a little lusting.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Because you said that she didn't have the look back pictures and she wasn't running after you.
And I had to imagine what was going on behind that sundress. So I said, there's something back there.
Is it the mystery
or
the part that you can't access? Like, what is it?
I don't know.
Okay.
She was her though, bro.
Yeah.
It's not like one thing.
Yes.
She had a package.
Yeah.
But to your point, I think there is a clear, stark difference between somebody you want to date. Look, y'all want the show to keep going.
Finish this one though. Finish that.
We'll see you on the next episode.
So you have to.
Give it up for Dr. Nicole, y'all.
So you got to see all the behind the scenes. We were at an audience, and they have jokes. I love it. So CJ's answer was cut off a little bit, but he was alluding to something, and that's what I want to start with him. When I started to say, so is there a difference between the woman you want to marry and the woman that you might just date or lust after? He was about to say, to your point. But even before that ending, the thing that stood out with him, with his answer and his wife, is that he was getting a lot of female attention. So again, she presented something different, which is, I'm not pressed about you. Everybody else on this campus, they met in college. Everybody else on this campus might be pressed about you. They might be willing to wash your clothes. CJ, part of the backstory, he was an athlete. It's like they might be willing, and we know the stories, they might be willing to wash your clothes and go do your homework and order takeout for you. But his wife, Candace, was like, well, I need to see. I need to pray about this. I need to think about this. I need to check in with myself. Don't think that this is just something where we're just going to Netflix and chill, and then it's 6 years later and we look up. So again, she set boundaries. They weren't rigid boundaries. Maybe they were a little more clearly stated, like explicitly stated, because she said it's 8 o'clock and you have to go. But her boundaries were more about what her values were. I need to take this to God. I need to look within. I need to see. I need to evaluate you. And that's given off very different than desperate. I need a man. Oh my God, please somebody choose me. I'll be so lucky if I get the handsome star athlete that's on campus. She was giving, he would be lucky if I'm interested in taking this a step further. And I want to know if you picked up on him saying, yes, my wife was fine. He said that in the beginning. So clearly there was physical attraction. But he also admitted he knew he was fine too. Other women knew he was fine. So that means that it had to go beyond attraction. And I think so many of our conversations online, it has so much to do with attraction, or the next step, chemistry. But attraction/chemistry and partnership are two completely different things. And it's so interesting because in both of their cases, they describe their future wives as presenting something different than what they have been seeing. David is like, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in Atlanta. He said these Atlanta streets are dirty. Like, he was used to, I'm assuming, seeing a lot of women, CJ as well. But those women stood out to them, not because they were trying to look better or be this manufactured package, but it was just the nature of who they were. David said there wasn't just one thing. She was the whole package. CJ said she was so different from all of these other women. And I've heard him talk about how his wife is spiritual. She's connected. And just for a little bit of background, CJ and his wife have been married, I heard him say 17 years. They have 2 kids. David and his wife have 3 kids. And in each of these cases, these men are very successful entrepreneurs, but their women didn't marry them. I said, oh, you were a millionaire. And David corrected me and said, at that time, I wasn't. So they were able to find women that they respected, that they admired, that represented a full package, something different, because those women were just being themselves, not desperate, not chasing. But they were also clearly women who got the benefit, the payoff of building with their man. The man didn't come ready-made. Part of probably what helped them to even get to that stage was that feminine energy that they picked up on. Now, this is me extrapolating a lot because they didn't say these things, but they kept alluding to that this was not just a woman that was there to date, to lust after. Yes, the attraction was there. They know that they have beautiful wives, but that wasn't the thing that made them want to establish a partnership and build a life together and essentially say, hey, I want to lock this down. I want you to be mine for life. It was the whole package. And that is so important because especially in 2026, I think we're coming out of the age of being cynical about relationships, but at the same time, we don't know where to go. So all of the online discussion is about attraction, but the qualities that lead to attraction are not necessarily the qualities that lead to long-term commitment, marriage, and partnership, and really building something together that you can benefit, that you can both benefit from. So what can we take from their answers? And again, these are just 2 men, but I love the real life examples. And I love when men just love up on their wives and say all of the things that they love about them. But what are the qualities that they talk about helping them to build this marriage and relationship with their respective wives? Well, the boundaries stand out. Whether they were stated boundaries in the case of CJ's wife, or they were boundaries just in terms of how she was living with David's wife. It's the boundaries that help a man to see what your character is. Boundaries say, hey, there's some limits to how I'm going to engage with you, especially if you haven't committed to me. And that is so important as a woman. If you want commitment, you have to be very clear about what the limits are, what you're going to do before you get to that level of commitment. Because there's so many cases where your energy can be drained. You can shift your values. You can change who you are due to the promise that this man is going to commit to you or whatever. And in reality, the thing that usually makes a good man of character commit is when he's like, wait, she has boundaries. She has a core character. She has values. She's not just letting me get away with any old thing. The other thing is how she presented herself to the world. Each of these men talked about that they wanted to have something unique and special with their wife, something that they get to have that she's not showing to the whole world or giving to the whole world. And I think we can all relate to that. Even as women, we want to have a unique connection with our husband, not something that whatever he does for everybody else, that's the same thing that we get. We are all looking for that unique connection. And I like to talk about how vulnerability and opening up and really just allowing yourself within those boundaries to also be open, that's a big part of that unique connection. And this is so important because the question isn't, can I attract someone, which is where a lot of people go with their efforts and their energy, but it's, can I build with someone? Who am I? Am I someone that someone would want to build with? And also, am I discerning with who I'm deciding to build with? And in both of these cases, that's what I hear. Each of their wives had qualities that made them say, I want to build with you. And it's so interesting. Each of them in their own way said, I wasn't necessarily looking to get married. I didn't set out to say, hey, I'm ready to get married now. Let me look for my wife. It wasn't like that. And that is so important because as we talk about trying to make sure you find someone who's marriage minded, there are other things you have to look at in terms of their character, how they treat you, how they respond to you, their consistency. It's not necessarily going to be, hey, a big sign on someone's head that says, hey, I'm marriage minded and I'm ready to get married. David said within 6 months he was. Now, I don't want you to leave this episode or this discussion with a checklist of like, these are the 5 things I need to do to get a husband. But I do want you to compare the answers and see what the similarities were and look at how it points to a few themes: boundaries, values, character, being yourself, living life for yourself, not being desperate in your own purpose. Now, those are the individual qualities that attracted CJ and David and other men that I talked to their future wives. But then it's the other part too of how to balance who you are with being in a relationship and being able to be interdependent. You're not getting married just to be, hey, this is me and I'm never going to change. You're building a life together because you want to be interdependent. You want to connect. And that means it takes some flexibility and adjustment and being willing to grow together and to evolve beyond that initial person that each of you all were when you met. So what does all of this tell us? Well, a healthy relationship isn't just about a checklist of qualities. You have these qualities, I have these qualities. It's really two people bringing qualities into the relationship that help it to grow. They're both bringing something to the table in terms of those qualities and what will help it to flourish. And so clearly your boundaries, your character, your emotional health, and theirs, that's what counts. It's way bigger than just attraction or chemistry. And the whole interview, and as I was thinking about the answers they gave and just what the common themes were, it made me think about my journal, the Damsel Me Please journal. So much of it starts with turning the attention back on ourselves. Who do we want to become? That is such an important starting point. And it makes me think about one of the prompts, which is, what qualities do I want to experience in my future or current partner? And what qualities am I intentionally bringing into the relationship myself? And when you write the answers to these prompts, when you get your journal, don't make this about perfection. It's not about being perfect. Neither of them said their wives were perfect, but you might think, okay, I want to be more emotionally available, or how can I be more vulnerable so that I can attract someone who is emotionally available and vulnerable? If you want someone who communicates, how do you communicate when you're hurt? If you want someone with healthy boundaries, how do you establish healthy boundaries? If you want someone that brings peace, what happens in the atmosphere or in the mood when you're upset? How are you creating peace? So much of this is not just how do I become more desirable? It's who am I becoming, and does that woman align with the kind of person that I want to attract and ultimately build with? So after hearing CJ and Dave, I don't want you to walk away thinking, oh my God, what do I need to do so that a man chooses me? How do I become this whole package? I actually want you to ask a slightly different and better question. It's, what am I bringing into this relationship that I'm asking for? Because the goal is not to get married. People are actually scared to get married now because they're scared of getting divorced. The goal isn't to just be chosen, because you could be chosen by the wrong person. And the goal is not to perform some version of what you think femininity is, and it's not really down in your core who you are. And then you end up feeling disappointed and they end up feeling disappointed. The goal is to actually build a healthy relationship with another healthy individual. And that means you could be looking at him and all his qualities, but you also need to be saying, I need to look at me. What are my boundaries? What are my values? What is my character? How do I handle conflict and disappointment? Am I working on my communication, not just for him, but for me as a woman? Can I receive love? Am I open and able to receive and not always be in manager mode, which is something that I hear from men a lot. Like, it's okay when you find that person that you really connect to, let your hair down, let your guard down. Are you able to repair after conflict? Are you able to be yourself, but also be a we, where you let down and let go of that me and you're able to be in this relationship as a we? These are the questions that I want us asking, and they might not be as sexy as, how can I get him to marry me? What do I need to wear? Okay, what look is in now? Like, what is the look that all the hotties and the baddies have? These questions that I'm pushing you to ask yourself might not be as exciting as those, and they may not be the quick fixes that we can just easily put something external on ourselves and think that we become the full package. But these questions are more likely to help you build that marriage that's worth having. Beyond being chosen, something that's much more solid and meaningful. So here's your reflection for the week, okay? Until we see each other next time. What are the qualities that you're intentionally cultivating? Not because you're trying to perform something or you want someone to choose you, but because they're part of the woman that you want to be within a healthy relationship. I want you to write that one down, and I would love to see some of your answers in the comments. Now, remember, before I played the interview, I asked you to think about, what do you think makes a man decide, I want to marry her? So now that we've heard CJ and David's answers and we've unpacked them a little bit, did your answer change? Let me know in the comments as well. Thank you so much for joining. This was actually a lot of fun for me. Doing that interview with them, it was very on the spot, and I'm going to show some of the behind the scenes footage. It was so fun, but I love the insights that they gave. And we're going to be having more interviews in different formats to really get inside the brains of both men and women and what we can do to build up these relationships and help you to be more feminine and at ease and balanced within yourself at the same time. So don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and hit that notifications bell so you don't miss any of the content. I can't wait to see you in the next episode. And remember, stay growing, stay soft, and stay feminine. I'm Dr. Nicole.